Something broke inside Toprak Razgatlıoğlu long before he rolled Yamaha's new V4 out of the garage. It wasn't a piece of machinery. It was the moment he realized that stepping into MotoGP, the dream everyone assumed he'd been chasing, meant walking away from the only world that ever felt like home. Behind the cameras, behind the celebrations, there's a truth he tried to hide. The bike he's betting his future on is still learning how to breathe, and the paddock he's entering doesn't yet know how to embrace him. Engineers whisper about load limits, torque inconsistencies, and a front end that still can't read his intentions, while Toprak whispers something even harder. He's not sure this is where he belongs. Yet he pushes forward, carrying the memory of a father who never got to see him reach this stage, a promise carved into his heart as sharply as the braking markers he once dominated. And now, with Yamaha rebuilding from its darkest moment, he stands on the edge of a project that could either crown him a legend or leave him stranded between two worlds. What he reveals next isn't just surprising. It changes everything we thought we knew about why he came here, and what it might cost him to stay. Yamaha stands at a crossroads that feels both historic and strangely intimate as the company abandons its inline-4 engine for a V4, a shift that reshapes its identity like a river cutting a new path through ancient rock. The factory speaks of evolution, yet beneath the official tone lies a sense of vulnerability that flickers through every corridor of the racing department. Takahiro Sumi captures this tension when he says, "The inline-4 has been the heart of Yamaha's philosophy for decades. It delivered unforgettable victories and shaped our reputation. But MotoGP is evolving, and we must evolve with it. Switching to a V4 is not just a technical decision, it's essential for our future." Engineers whisper about crankshaft inertia profiles that no longer match the aerodynamic loads of modern MotoGP, exposing the limits of Yamaha's old identity. Toprak watches from the edge of the garage, thinking, is this the moment when everything becomes unfamiliar? The shift reshapes the very soul of the M1, transforming its once fluid character into something more abrupt and muscular. There is excitement, but also a kind of mourning, like cleaning out a childhood home whose walls still remember your laughter. The V4 prototype hums with a deeper, rougher cadence, hinting at untapped potential and unspoken risks. Journalists sense the fragility of this transition and write cautiously, aware that Yamaha rarely sheds its traditions without a quiet internal struggle. The riders feel it too, a pressure that seeps into every debrief as the team navigates a future built on uncertainty. Even test data reflect a story of tension, with torque curves rising sharply where smooth arcs once lived. Yamaha's character has always been precision, but now it must learn to express power differently, almost aggressively. The paddock watches with a mix of suspicion and fascination, knowing that reinvention is never painless. Engineers move around a bike like sculptors refining a statue whose final shape still hides beneath stone. The atmosphere in the garage thickens each time the engine fires, carrying the scent of metal and expectation. Some call this the rebirth Yamaha needed, while others fear it is an act of desperation disguised as innovation. Yet change, once set in motion, cannot be unmade. In that sense, Yamaha's transformation is not just mechanical, but existential. And as the first V4 shakedown ends, the project arrives at its quiet climax with a sentence whispered by a mechanic. Everything begins again. Early tests of Yamaha's V4 reveal a machine caught between promise and instability, showing flashes of potential shadowed by an uneasy front end that resists full trust. Augusto Fernandez summarizes the unease when he says, "I don't feel comfortable with the front. Something is missing." Every time we go down the track, what we're missing becomes clearer. His second remark lands even heavier as he explains, "This bike is still far from race-ready. There's a lot more we need to see from the shakedown." Engineers examine the data and note that the new V4's valve timing strategy, still partially locked for safety, limits the torque delivery Yamaha hopes to unleash. Toprak watches the telemetry scroll past and wonders, will this bike understand me before the season begins? The garage feels tense as the front-end problems echo through every debrief like a stubborn riddle. Riders describe the sensation as a vague, shifting weight that refuses to settle under braking, disrupting the rhythm needed for confidence. The development team circles the bike with measured urgency, aware that each test exposes both progress and fragility. Even small details, like the temperature sensitivity of the new carbon brake discs, add layers of complication they did not fully anticipate. The atmosphere grows heavier each time Fernandez steps off the bike, carrying the look of someone balancing hope with caution. Journalists sense this undercurrent and craft stories that mix admiration for Yamaha's courage with doubt about its timing. Toprak listens to the engine from the pit wall, its tone deeper yet somehow hesitant, like a vocalist learning a new range. The team adjusts ride height devices and fork springs in search of stability that remains elusive. Engineers compare the V4's behavior to a restless animal, powerful yet not yet tamed. Data analysts sift through gigabytes of information, hoping for a pattern that reveals a breakthrough. The paddock whispers that Yamaha risks falling behind before the new era even begins. Still, within the crew burns an unwavering belief that complexity can be conquered. The V4's potential glows beneath the surface, waiting for alignment between rider, chassis, and power delivery. Each test becomes a negotiation between ambition and reality. Yet even in this demanding landscape, there is an undercurrent of stubborn determination that threads through every Yamaha meeting. And beneath every wrench turn lies the same unspoken question. The mountain is higher than expected. Yamaha's development project accelerates under the relentless pressure of the 2026 regulation reset, compressing time into a series of demanding tests that stretch the team's technical and emotional endurance. Inside the factory walls, engineers repeat with cautious conviction, "For the first time in years, we have a clear direction. We understand what needs to change, our development plan is fully mapped out, and we believe we finally have the foundation to rebuild." The words offer reassurance, yet the atmosphere remains charged with the awareness that clarity does not guarantee success. Toprak studies the evolving V4 and wonders, can this machine truly become whole before the deadline swallows us? Data streams across monitors like a frantic heartbeat, revealing both breakthroughs and unresolved wounds. The staff analyses camshaft advance tables with urgency, knowing small gains can shift the balance of the entire project. In the garage, the air feels thick with determination, anticipation, and the subtle hum of doubt that follows every innovation cycle. Journalists portray Yamaha's work as a daring reinvention, one that exposes the brand's capacity for adaptation as well as its vulnerability. The development schedule resembles a tightrope walk performed above a quiet canyon, demanding precision with no room for hesitation. Each test session becomes a crucial chapter, pushing the team to redefine expectations lap after lap. Engineers adjust chassis stiffness parameters while hoping each modification brings them closer to equilibrium. Riders absorb the pressure too, carrying the weight of development with every turn of the handlebars. The V4 shows glimpses of brilliance, moments in which power, stability, and control align like stars glimpsed through breaking clouds. Those moments fuel the team, anchoring their belief that the project can overcome its early fractures. Yet time remains a ruthless opponent, slicing away comfort with every passing week. This urgency forces Yamaha to refine communication, compress meetings, and streamline experimentation with unprecedented discipline. The bike becomes both a puzzle and a mirror, reflecting the team's fears and ambitions under fluorescent lights. The paddock watches this evolution with a mix of respect and suspense, aware that failure or triumph can hinge on decisions made in the shadows. Still, within this unforgiving countdown, Yamaha discovers a rhythm born from necessity, one that binds the crew with a sense of shared purpose even as exhaustion looms. And as the team gathers around the prototype one more time, the weight of what remains unresolved balances delicately with what has already been achieved, culminating in a single final truth: the clock never forgives. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu's arrival in MotoGP feels like the moment a dormant storm finally touches ground, sending a charge through Yamaha's pit box that no one can fully prepare for. Paolo Pavizio captures the transformation vividly when he says, "Toprak has matured enormously." His communication with the crew is more confident, his feedback is immediate, and during testing he provided detailed technical analysis well beyond what we expected. His words circulate through the garage like a new current that redefines expectations. The engineers notice how Toprak dissects torque delivery curves with the same instinctive clarity he once reserved for braking duels in WorldSBK. Watching them work, Toprak feels the weight of possibility and wonders. Am I becoming the rider they always hoped to find? The crew observes his interaction with the V4 and senses a rider who bridges intuition and engineering with rare fluency. During his Aragon debut, he reveals his surprise by admitting, "I didn't expect so many Yamaha staff to be there just to listen to my feedback. It showed me how much trust they are putting in me." That trust becomes the fuel for a new dynamic that reshapes the garage atmosphere. Yamaha technicians compare his debriefs to a finely tuned instrument, precise yet emotionally driven. His sensitivity to traction control thresholds and engine braking maps astonishes even veterans who have tested dozens of riders over the years. The paddock soon recognizes that Toprak's perspective carries the rhythm of someone who reads machinery like poetry. He moves with the confidence of a man who knows that riding is more than speed. It is the art of understanding friction, momentum, and fear. The V4 responds to him like an instrument adjusting to its musician, revealing notes it had hidden during previous tests. Journalists describe the scene as a sunrise breaking across a landscape that had grown dim in Yamaha's struggles. The team feels the shift too, realizing that Toprak is not simply adapting, he is shaping the process. His presence becomes a metaphorical compass pointing toward a future Yamaha once feared might be out of reach. Even the test data shows traces of his influence, with smoother throttle traces indicating a synergy still in its infancy. Technicians gather around the screen with renewed focus, searching for insights hidden within his laps. Through this emerging alignment, Yamaha finds itself carrying a spark it had nearly forgotten. And as the V4 rolls back into the box after another revealing run, the air thickens with a single, undeniable climax. Toprak has become the catalyst they didn't know they were waiting for. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu enters MotoGP confronting a challenge far deeper than horsepower, discovering that Michelin's famously unforgiving front tire demands a riding grammar he has not yet mastered. Nicolo Bulega captures the struggle with stark simplicity when he admits, "We are struggling a little bit on the front. The tires are very different. You have to ride in a different mode." His warning becomes a quiet truth echoing through Yamaha's garage as the Turkish sensation begins deciphering sensations he never faced in WorldSBK. Engineers say the Michelin carcass reacts like a sensitive instrument, capable of brilliance but punishing the slightest miscommunication. Toprak feels that fragility in every corner entry and wonders, how do I bend a tire that refuses to bend for me? Bulega adds another layer of honesty by saying, Toprak's braking and corner entry strengths won't immediately translate to MotoGP. But once he adapts to the Michelin front, those strengths could make him incredibly competitive. Yamaha's analysts nod grimly, knowing that the tire's peak load tolerance creates a razor-thin margin where genius and disaster coexist. The telemetry reveals spikes of steering torque that look like jagged mountains carved by uncertainty. Toprak studies the graphs with a mixture of frustration and fascination, tracing lines that unsettle his instincts. The V4's behavior amplifies the tension, demanding a delicate balance between aggression and restraint that feels unnatural to his trademark style. His crew tinkers with fork oil viscosity and triple clamp offsets to give him more support, but the tire remains a mysterious partner in a dance he has not yet learned. Journalists describe the adaptation as one of MotoGP's most unforgiving rites of passage. Fans watch him push the limits, sensing the silent duel between rider and rubber. Through it all, Toprak refuses to retreat from the discomfort, embracing each lap as a lesson carved into asphalt. His ability to absorb feedback, both emotional and mechanical, becomes Yamaha's most precious weapon. The struggle begins to reveal its own form of beauty, like learning to tune a violin with strings that snap too easily. Yet every breakthrough is followed by a reminder that Michelin's front demands absolute truth from the rider. And as the day's final run ends, the tension accumulates into a powerful climax. Mastery will not come quickly, but once it arrives, Toprak will be unstoppable. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu enters MotoGP carrying a weight far heavier than any motorcycle could reveal on track, a weight shaped by memory, belonging, and the ache of leaving a world that raised him. After his third WorldSBK crown, he admitted with disarming honesty, "I'm a little bit sad also to move to the MotoGP paddock." The words struck the paddock with unexpected tenderness, revealing the vulnerability behind his fearless riding. He deepened this confession by saying, "I feel like I was born in the world's superbike paddock. I know everyone." Those familiar bonds form a tapestry of years that cannot be replicated overnight, stitched from laughter, rivalry, and the quiet solidarity that blooms in small paddock corners. Toprak recalls how every weekend felt like stepping into a warm room after a long journey, whispering, "Every race weekend, we are enjoying ourselves. When I enter the paddock, I'm always talking with someone. And this is a very good feeling for me. I am really going to miss this." His reflection carries the melancholy of a man leaving a house filled with the echoes of his own past joys. Engineers notice how this emotional migration subtly shapes the way he approaches MotoGP testing, blending precision with a longing he cannot fully silence. Watching the V4 idle in the box, he thinks, will this new world ever feel like home the way Superbike did? The contrast between the paddocks becomes its own psychological test. as MotoGP's intensity feels sharper, colder, more metallic. Yamaha senses both the fragility and the strength in his transition, understanding that emotional turbulence often refines a rider's intuition. The technical briefings are efficient, precise, yet lacking the friendly chaos he once knew in SBK. His father's memory follows him through each session like a shadow cast by a distant sun, guiding him with bittersweet light. He honors this legacy openly, saying, "Racing in MotoGP was my father's dream. He passed away before I even raced in WorldSBK, so this move is also a way of honoring him." That dedication becomes a quiet engine inside him, pulsing beneath every decision he makes. Journalists describe his journey as a bridge suspended between past and destiny, swaying under emotional winds. His crew notices the depth in his eyes, a mixture of courage and grief that sharpens rather than weakens him. And as Toprak stands alone beside the MotoGP bike after another long day of testing, the narrative reaches its climax with a truth as raw as the revs echoing around him. Sometimes chasing a dream means leaving behind the places where your heart learned to beat. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu steps into MotoGP at a moment when Yamaha resembles a house mid-renovation, its walls half torn down and its future sketched in pencil rather than ink. He captures the uncertainty with unfiltered clarity when he says, "I know MotoGP won't be easy, especially with Yamaha still rebuilding. The first season will be tough, but I believe in the project." His words echo through the garage like a fragile oath carried on a shifting wind. The team acknowledges the risk inherent in fielding a V4 still carving out its identity against the might of Ducati and the precision of KTM. Toprak feels the magnitude of this leap and wonders, "How I walked into a storm that isn't ready to calm?" Paolo Pavizio offers reassurance by observing, "Even though this was only a shakedown, we immediately saw progress." Toprak adapted to MotoGP's rider aids much faster than we anticipated. His praise lifts morale among engineers working with weary precision on traction control tables and torque mapping algorithms. Yet every data sheet still highlights a glaring truth. The gap to the front remains a mountain, not hill. The riders sense it too, feeling how the Yamaha still hesitates on acceleration, as if learning to breathe in thinner air. In the pit box, technicians speak with solemn focus about mid-corner load transitions that demand refinement. Reporters describe Yamaha's predicament as a delicate tightrope stretched over a valley of expectations. Still, Toprak confronts each test session with the quiet intensity of someone refusing to let fear dictate his trajectory. His adaptation to electronic strategies becomes a rare bright spot in Yamaha's rebuilding saga. The V4's behavior shifts subtly beneath him, revealing hints of potential wrapped in layers of unfinished complexity. Engineers compare these test days to tuning a lighthouse in fog, guiding a ship that must learn to navigate by instinct before clarity arrives. Through it all, Toprak carries himself with an unwavering resolve that inspires even the most skeptical observers. The challenge becomes more than mechanical. It becomes a measure of endurance, belief, and emotional resilience. Every lap feels like a step forward and a reminder of how far remains to climb. And as he exits the garage at the end of a grueling day, the moment reaches its climax with a quiet, piercing truth. Greatness often begins at the lowest point of the ascent. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu enters MotoGP with conviction, yet the possibility of a return to WorldSBK lingers behind him like a familiar melody drifting through a half-open door. He admits this duality openly, saying, "I still love WorldSBK and its paddock. If MotoGP becomes only a short chapter in my life, I wouldn't rule out coming back one day." Those words carry the softness of nostalgia wrapped in the sharp edge of truth, revealing a rider unwilling to sever the emotional thread tying him to his past. Yamaha understands that such honesty is not hesitation, but humanity shaped by years of belonging. Toprak studies the V4's data during debriefs, examining torque curves and load distribution patterns with the precision of a man building a future he is not entirely sure belongs to him. In the quiet moments between runs, he wonders, can a person truly carry two homes in the same heart? The contrast between MotoGP's sprawling intensity and SBK's warm familiarity becomes a quiet storm inside him. Engineers feel the tension too, sensing that Toprak's deep connection to superbike culture gives him both strength and vulnerability. His adaptation to the Michelin front and the aggressive aerodynamic package demands more emotional bandwidth than outsiders understand. Yamaha pushes forward with determination, yet even they see how his past shapes the way he evaluates every new sensation on the prototype. Journalists describe his situation as a long bridge suspended between two worlds that both claim him. Fans embrace the uncertainty, knowing that unpredictability is part of what makes Toprak an icon. The paddock whispers that a return to SBK would ignite celebrations, yet his MotoGP journey still feels like an unfinished painting. Through each lap, the Turkish rider holds the tension of ambition and memory like two threads pulled taut. His love for the SBK paddock remains a constant, a reminder of the laughter, warmth, and camaraderie he once moved through with effortless joy. Yamaha respects this emotional duality, understanding that passion cannot be forced into a single direction. Toprak's presence becomes a metaphorical lighthouse, illuminating two different shores at once. As the season unfolds, he learns to ride not only the motorcycle, but the delicate balance of identity it forces upon him. And when the garage falls silent at the end of a long test day, the story reaches its final climax with an undeniable truth. Some riders chase the future, but Toprak carries his past with the strength of a man who knows exactly where he comes from.